Hi everybody, this is Lainey with Camp Joy Farms. I'm coming to you this New Year's Eve night. It's Friday night, New Year's Eve, and we're at home pretty much doing nothing. My husband's wanting to watch some ball games and things like that on TV, so I thought I'd kind of sneak out to my shed and do a little video just to let you know something that I've decided to do. I haven't even grown my first tomato yet to sell to the public, and I've already decided to change my plans a little bit. I know in my very first introductory video for Camp Joy Farms, I announced loud and proud that I was going to build a high tunnel on my property. It's a 20 by 48 foot high tunnel. I already had it, still have it, and I had every intention in the world of building that greenhouse, and it was an integral part of my plan for Camp Joy Farms. But I've been doing a lot of soul searching lately, and then something happened in the last couple of days that kind of put the icing on the cake, and I've decided to not build my greenhouse. I call it a greenhouse. It's technically a high tunnel because it has high walls on the side. It doesn't just arc from the ground straight over like some tunnels do. It's got walls that are about 7.5 feet tall, and then it arcs at the top. So it's technically a high tunnel. I always call it a greenhouse. So I wanted to just discuss it with you. I'm sure the people that know me personally that are watching my videos are just gonna wonder why she decided not to do the high tunnel. So I thought I would just kind of explain that. If you don't know me and you just catch this video at some point, I just kind of wanted to go through my reasoning of why I decided not only to not put it up, but I am going to try to sell it. And it's just not going to be on my plate for a long, long time to have a high tunnel. And everyone has their own reasons for this and that. And I just thought I would give mine. The first thing I wanted to do though was just explain why I wanted to get a high tunnel to begin with. And that just evolved over time. I have followed the last few years several homesteading channels and just channels I enjoy that have just brought me so much joy. It's kind of why I wanted to do this channel. I just thought if I can show my gardens, and especially in the spring, right now just doing a lot of maintenance work, but in the spring when the gardens start coming, if I can show those gardens and there's somebody out there like me that'll enjoy my channel like I'm enjoying some of the other channels I watch, then I just kind of wanted to do that and be a part of that. But some of the channels that I watch erected greenhouses on their properties, high tunnels, and I thought it was a great idea, and I still do. It's a very good idea. And their reasonings were a lot of the time because, first of all, you can grow things in there year round, and that's pretty much true. There's usually something that you can find to keep growing all winter long, whether it be kale or greens or something like that. And so that's a very good reason. For food security, that's the new thing. Everybody keeps talking about food security, but basically to be able to eat and feed your family all winter long, should you need to. It's a wonderful idea to have the high tunnel. And so for that reason, I was all in as well. Even if I was not factoring in a business for my own family, I just thought it would be a great thing to have. Now you could buy a smaller one than what I bought if it's just for your family. I went ahead and bought, I guess, a size that I was comfortable with. It was 20 by 48. It was a little bit bigger than some I've seen on YouTube, but it was smaller than some I've seen on YouTube as well. When you're looking at the price and you're looking at the place in your yard you have for things and all, you just have to do your own thing. You have to factor in your own facts, that guide how you're going to decide which one to build, because there's probably 30 or 40 different sizes or more that you can choose from. I chose the 20 by 48 after stepping off the area that I had outside. So with that being said, I had to make decisions because lumber prices had went up. So I really, really would have loved to have built this high tunnel and then put raised beds at least all along the side walls, if not a couple of raised beds in the middle, and really start raised bed gardening is something I had never done before. And I thought, well, why not do that in this high tunnel and then do my in-ground gardening in my outdoor gardens? But the price of lumber went up and this, that, and the other. And when I started adding up how much lumber I would need for all those raised beds and everything, I could see really quick it was going to get very expensive. So I decided, well, keep the tunnel, but just do the bracing around it. You do have to buy some boards. It's not just a metal structure. You put it up and it's a metal structure, but they immediately, want you to put bracing all around the bottom, another 2x4 bracing around the middle of the greenhouse, and then another set of 2x4 bracing around the top where the bows come into the straight part. That's the sides. You need another all the way around the greenhouse bracing there. So that's still a lot of boards just to brace the greenhouse. And with the tropical storms and hurricanes that we have in South Louisiana, that was just not going to be an option to not do. I was definitely going to have to do that. So I've actually got those boards already. I was ready to go. That's what's so strange about this, is I was ready to go. I have the greenhouse, which of course came with the plastic that goes on it. I bought the end wall kits. I'll revisit the end wall kits in just a moment, but I bought the end wall kits. You have to pay for those separate. I bought shade cloth that goes over the top. I watched all of Danny King's videos from Deep South Homestead. And as he's putting up his greenhouse, he just gives little tips about things you might need, a rat tail file to file off little edges on your post so that it doesn't rip your plastic, lineman's pliers, bungee cords, all kind of things like that. So I made really detailed notes when I was watching his videos, and I've actually procured all of those little things that I would need putting up the greenhouse. Everything except maybe a little propane torch that he used to burn holes in his black ground cover that he put on his. I had just decided I wasn't going to spend the money buying the black ground cover for the whole entire greenhouse. That was another thing that was going to cost a lot of money. So I didn't buy the little propane torch, but pretty much everything else, I had went ahead and either, if I didn't have it here, if my husband didn't have it in our tools, I went ahead and bought the tools. And then I went ahead and figured out my lumber needs for the bracing around the three parts of the greenhouse, plus some extra bracing like on the corners, some corner bracing. So I bought the boards for those. You have to buy a lot of L brackets and things like that to put the end walls up and all. So I've actually got all of those. I went ahead and just was ready to go. I didn't want to be the reason that the project got held up. I didn't want my help to show up to help me with it and me not be organized in my mind. That's just the way I am. That's the way I was when we built this house a few years ago. I didn't ever make the contractor wait one day for me to make a decision. Everything was mapped out before I handed him the plans to get a bid. And that's kind of how I wanted to do this greenhouse, because I knew I was going to need some help. And I didn't want to be the person that was wishy-washy and, didn't really know how our greenhouse was supposed to be built or whatever. I did all of my due diligence that I could do ahead of time. I watched those videos, I took notes, and, tried my best to have everything to where if they said, oh, we're going to need so-and-so, I'm like, I got it, like a nurse in the operating room. I've got it. Here you go, here you go, here you go. And that was probably going to be fine. But my goal was to kind of start it in October, and that didn't happen. Then November rolls around, that didn't happen. Then December rolls around, that didn't happen. And now I'm sitting here on New Year's Eve, we're rolling into January, and nothing's been done. I've hauled a lot of dirt over here, but from the piles that we have on our property, I've hauled dirt to the greenhouses, but I need a little bit more expert help with flattening it and making that solid foundation that's to grade. That's kind of above my scale. I have been trying. I have, scooped it front and back and left and right. And, my brother-in-law put up strings to kind of show me how to do things and stuff. But it's been a chore because really and truly, it has taken me forever to get all the dirt hauled over here. You're talking about one bucket full on my tractor, and then I have to drive it completely around my property, around that beach and everything, because I can't take my tractor across that deep sand, and around down our gravel road, up our driveway to my garden to just dump one little bucket full of dirt and then go back and do the same thing. And as you know, with my husband's situation and time constraints, I just can't go work on a project like that for 6 or 8 hours during a day. It's literally just sometimes an hour or so every couple of days that I can actually get out there and do dirt work. But anyway, not making excuses, but it's been taking me forever to get enough dirt over here to make it level. Now, I was also going to be hauling in at some point. It could even be after the tunnel was built. I was going to be hauling over here my organic soil and things like that to add to it. But I'm talking about just to give it a level foundation to where you can pull strings, put your post in the right spot and everything else. That was just dragging on and dragging on. And someone offered, a friend of ours offered the other day to bring his dump truck and skid steer over here to help me. And I do appreciate that. But there again, we don't have a date, and I'm just starting to feel very badly about the amount of time I may have to ask people to help me with it. It's a dirt work day before we can even do anything. Then it's a day where we have to use the auger to drill the holes in the ground. There's going to be a lot of leveling involved, a lot of, after we get the post holes and everything, we need to kind of right off the bat put the 2x4 framing around the bottom, and you have to have that level. And then when you go to set your post, you can mark your post and level them up to the sides of that 2x4 framing to make sure that everything is 7.5 foot out of the ground or 7 foot or whatever you go, but it has to be level all around your greenhouse. You can't just stick this one in a hole and put concrete, stick that one in a hole and put, you have to level it all up. And it's going to take a while. Many hours, actually. We're going to have to set the post in concrete at my house. I've explained that I have really hard ground here. Really hard. And so we're going to auger the holes, put the post in, have to really do a lot of leveling and thinking before we backfill them and put concrete, because once that's in, that's in. So anyway, it's a long story, but it's going to be a lot of work. And I do have 3 people that have offered to help me, but I'm looking at it as a blessing that it's taken this long to even get going. I look at that as a blessing, because sometimes if something's not meant to be, then you're glad you didn't do it. If I had just jumped in and gotten it done a few months ago, and now I'm realizing what I want to do, and I'm sitting there with a greenhouse, I can't just take it down. It is cemented in the ground. And I am starting to rethink things, and for my own reasons. I did a video a while back that said, find your lane, and my part of that video was explaining that I have to figure out what works for me, what works for my family, and things like that. And I have decided I don't think having a big high tunnel greenhouse for me to maintain and things like that is the best thing for me right now. I'm not opposed to having one. I just might end up building me something later that's smaller. That would be a good little greenhouse to start my plants in and things like that, and then transfer them out of there into the ground when they're ready and things. I don't know if I need a big growing greenhouse right now. Let me explain a couple of other reasons why people like to have the greenhouses, though. I think that might help you understand why I was wanting to get one to begin with. You can plant things in the greenhouses. Johnny's and different places make seeds that are for greenhouses, like cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers. And these seeds have been bred to where you don't have to have pollinators, which are like bees. You don't have to have bees or butterflies flying in your greenhouse all the time to pollinate your plants. These seeds will grow without that. So that's a good thing, because you can maintain the environment of your greenhouse and not have to leave it wide open all the time for pollinators, and you can grow things. So that's a benefit of having a greenhouse, to have these varieties, these hybrids that can grow without pollinators. And another reason people like to have them is because you can go out there in any kind of weather and work, and you can do your weeding, your thinning, things like that in any kind of weather in a greenhouse. So there's lots of pluses for having the greenhouse. Another specific plus for me was that we kind of needed a tax write-off this year. I almost started this business last year officially, I was actually getting very frustrated with myself because I didn't get it done before the end of the year. I kept telling myself all last summer, all last fall, just get on the Secretary of State's website, file for a business name. You have to kind of form an LLC, which I think that's really what tripped me up because I thought that was a lot more complicated than it is. And I just never got it done. I didn't get it done. I was also going to do one for my husband to form a dirt working business. We had bought our tractor in June of 2020 because COVID was all going on right then. A lot of things were changing in Louisiana with the chemical plants. There were plants that just didn't want people coming in to bid jobs because they didn't want anybody that wasn't employed at their plant there because of COVID. So a lot of jobs were kind of drying up. My husband was kind of really worried about his job. So we decided to take a little of our savings and buy him a tractor and some bush hog implements and a bionic blade to grade roads and things like that so that he could advertise and do that on the side. And then if it ever needed to, it could roll into maybe a full-time, part-time job or whatever if he needed to make extra money if his job ended. So we were really, really worried about that. So we went ahead and bought the tractor in June of 2020. And I intended fully before the end of that year to start him a business name and me a business name, but it never really got done. And I just couldn't even understand why I was delaying it. But I truly believe that God knows what's happening. And sometimes you look back and you go, okay, now I understand why I never got that done. Because January rolled around, he had a stroke, life changed. There's no way he can do that business. It would have been pointless. And I would be in the position now of having to close out that business. And then mine, there was no need to have started it in 2020 because I couldn't have done anything with a full business in 2021. I am going to try starting spring of 2022. So it worked out better that I started my business this year. So God knew, I didn't know, but now I understand kind of what was going on with that. Well, I'm rolled into my reasons why I'm selling my greenhouse because I kind of am feeling that same way now. I feel like I was excited to get it, and by getting it and knowing that I could write off this greenhouse as a business expense and being kind of committed to doing that when you know you're going to be starting a business and you know you're going to be buying things for that business and putting that on your tax return that you have a business and you're spending money on it, it propels you to move forward in that business. And it gave me motivation that I'm official now, this isn't fun and games anymore, and that, I needed to move forward with all my business plans. So I'm glad I bought it. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I researched it. I'm glad I watched all those videos. I'm extremely glad for the process that went on. But now I almost just feel like I'm being asked just to lay it aside and not commit to it what it needs committing to. And I agree with that. I'm at peace with it. That's how I know when I'm making the right decision, is when I feel completely at peace. And I feel very much at peace right now with not moving forward with this greenhouse. There's a lot more to it than you realize. I am organized. And I said a while ago, I have everything I need to get that greenhouse built. If someone should come over to help me build it, I have what I need. However, that's not the end of the story with greenhouses. If I could get, guys over here to help me build it, that's fine. And they would go home after we got the main greenhouse built. But you still have to put up the end walls on the greenhouse, which even if they help me with that, that's fine. But the end walls are just metal poles and different things, and there's a door opening. And then they give you the plastic to put on it. But that's it. The rest of the doors that you have to buy, that's extra. I could build something. I could just use plastic for a while. You have to just evaluate what you can do at the time. But it's still going to be money. At some point, you would need to put something on there, just more than just plastic, because basically any little critter could run up in there at night, armadillos, raccoons, or anything, if all you have is plastic hanging there. So you would have to do something at some point that's better than that, and that costs money. Also, you have to buy you don't have to, I guess, but you really need to buy, especially where we live down here in the humid Gulf Coast area, is you would need to buy some fans to go above the doorways at each end of your greenhouse. You have doors at each end, and then you would need fans for each end. And these could be just manual fans driven by the wind, you know, and that would work if it's windy. I do get a lot of wind off of the lake, so that would be okay for most days. But an electric fan would be better, that you could turn off and on when you needed to put ventilation into your high tunnel. That's a big component in the high tunnel, is you have to keep it ventilated when temperatures start rising, because you can quickly end up with 100 and something degree temperature in your greenhouse. And if you don't have ventilation going and you don't roll your sides up and things like that to kind of let some air come in, your plants could just die. So everything you put into that work in that greenhouse could just get in very bad trouble very quickly if you don't maintain the climate in there. That's another thing, running electricity out there. We would have to get that permitted. As a matter of fact, one of the permit people drove up one day and just saw our metal shed that we had bid out there. She just drove up out of nowhere and asked me, do y'all have electricity running to that shed? And I said, no, we didn't put any electricity in it. You know, I said, it doesn't even have a concrete foundation. It just has limestone, you know. And I said, you can go look in it if you want to. And she said, no, I don't see a pole. I can tell y'all don't have electricity. But, you know, I would run into some trouble if all of a sudden a greenhouse is right by the shed and it's got a pole and lights on it or electric fans, you know. It would have to all get permitted. It would be a process. I don't know that I want to go through that process right now. I don't know that I want to deal with that and the expense of paying an electrician to come up here, or even a good old boy that we know, you know, you could get someone to come, but to get the permit, it would need to be a licensed electrician. So you can't just get someone you know to come do it. Eventually you might get in trouble. And like I said, the girl just drove up here one day in her car, you know, with the tags on the side, you know, and was asking questions. So they could come back at any time. I'd probably have to have a licensed electrician come do it. And that's another expense. And when you think about all these things, and even if I decided later to do raised beds, you know, there's lumber in that. You've got to fill them with dirt and organic soil and compost and things. It just starts adding up. And I've started thinking, you know, how much, you know, can I keep putting into the infrastructure of that greenhouse? Yes, it would be there forever, I guess. You know, as long as a hurricane or a tropical storm didn't damage it really bad, you know, I could keep on adding bracing and things like that. But that's just money, money, money. It just, you know, it keeps on adding up. Even Danny from Deep South Homestead, I heard him on a video the other day, and, you know, the greenhouse itself might cost, you know, $2,900 to $4,000 something, you know, depending on what size you get. But he even said by the time he built it to his specs and the raised beds in it and, you know, wired it and all that stuff, it was an $8,000 greenhouse. So you have to start thinking, and I can easily see how that could happen. I can easily see how you could end up spending $8,000 to get it completely done and hurricane proof and everything. And they live 30 miles from the coast too. So that's why he had to do the things he did to brace it. And I probably would need to too. I had eliminated some of his steps just for money reasons, but I probably would eventually have to come back and do a lot of the things he did to make mine as sturdy as his. So I can easily see how it could become an $8,000 greenhouse. So you have to just evaluate, and that's the things that kept running through my mind. Also, this might be a little off the wall to say, but I keep hearing the people with greenhouses talking about how they end up having rat problems, mice problems, and things in their greenhouses. And oh my gosh, I know I live out in the country, and I know, you know, you can get them in your garden whether you have a greenhouse or not. You know, mice love to get in carrots and things like that. But that is not something I look forward to having a battle, is keeping rats out of my greenhouse. That a little bit freaks me out when I think about it. So, and Another North Texas gardener that's on YouTube, she just got through battling rats in her greenhouse. And so they did too at Deep South Homestead. And so I don't know, that's something I don't really look forward to doing that. But that's not a deal breaker, but that's just something you do have to think about, is you're going to have like a protocol to keep rats out of your greenhouse, because they will burrow up under those sides in no time, and they'll just start sitting in there at night and having a buffet off of your plants. So you're going to have a little protocol to make sure that doesn't happen. But the main thing, and this is a personal reason, this is not a practical reason like cost or anything like that, it's just a personal reason, but we just found out Christmas Eve that our daughter and her family are going to be moving to Texas. That's all three of my grandchildren are going to be moving to Texas with their mom and dad. And man, it threw me for a loop. That darn Texas is just sucking in people from all over the country, dadgummit. And now mine are gone too. Louisiana people have lost a lot of their kids to Texas. And I guess now we're on the list. And so that's really kind of thrown me for a loop. Why? What does that have to do with my greenhouse? Well, when you have a greenhouse, you have to monitor it. I explained a while ago about having to keep up with the temperature, or you could lose everything that you had in it. And if you go out of town for 3 or 4 days and you're not here, and you shut that greenhouse up and go out of town, you might be in a world of trouble when you get back. Your plants may not have survived it. You could work with somebody, to get your friend or something to come over and open it, roll up the sides, turn your fans on, check your humidity, that kind of stuff. But I love everybody, that we know would say, oh, I'll help you with that or whatever. But do you really want to bug people to do that every few months when you decide to go see your grandkids in Texas? And I don't want to put people through that. I don't want to ask people to have to come up here. We don't live, we live near one of our friends, but we don't live near anybody else in our family or our friends. The closest family is 10 miles away. And I just don't want to ask people to come up here and take care of something like that for us all the time. I just don't. And so I think that was the deal breaker when they announced that to us Christmas Eve. And their oldest child is my daughter's daughter. And she would be moving with her stepdad and my daughter. So let me clear that up. I said a while ago, their parents, but my granddaughter, her dad would still live here, but she would go back and forth and things like that. So, but anyway, I'm sorry I didn't make that clear at first. But I think that's the deal breaker, is we want to be able to, if we need to, pick up on it'll probably be during the weekdays, and go over there for a night or so during the week to see them and then come back. My plants in the ground could handle that. My plants in the ground aren't going to miss me that bad if I go. They probably would need a vacation from me because they'd be tired of me. But plants in a greenhouse, that's a different story. You have to open up that greenhouse every day. If it's hot, you have to do, and I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, we're only going to go see our grandkids, in the winter when I don't hardly have anything growing in the greenhouse. You can't say that. It might be at any time, once a month or something like that, all year long. You just don't know. And you want to be able to go. Things happen, birthdays, things like that, school things. And I really don't want to be having a greenhouse determining whether I can do things like that. So I think that's what it all boils down to. And I'm at peace with it. And I hope I've explained it kind of well, because I don't want to come back later and just say it really quick in a video and not really explain it well. So I thought I would just sit here tonight, kind of evaluating everything in my life here at the end of the year. And I wanted to just explain that that's why I'm not going to be building a greenhouse. I hope everyone understands. I hope you understand all my thoughts. Let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts on it. If you've built a greenhouse, if it's a lot of work, if it's more work than you thought or less work than you thought. I'd be interested to hear what other people think that have them. And, you know, one day I may have one. I may have a smaller version of what I was going to have. And I just want to be able to take care of it and enjoy it, but only use it a little bit at a time when I need to. I think the bulk of what I'm going to do is just going to be outside, and I'm just going to have the faith that we'll be able to continue growing outside for a long, long time. So that's all I wanted to talk to you about tonight. I appreciate you joining me, and I hope everyone has a great new year. Let's all grow something, get some food in the ground, get some seeds, make you a little plot in your yard this year, container garden, whatever it takes. Just get some seeds in the ground and grow something. This is Lainey with Camp Joy Farms. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.